working, it reached a point where I started having blackouts. We're talking about blackouts of losing days. So on this occasion, I knew it was a Monday, and when I'm coming to, I'm being told it's a Thursday or a Friday, and I'm wondering what just happened. What do you mean today is Thursday? I found myself calling my sister, and my sister picked up the phone. I had not talked to her for a very long time. It was on and off, and probably by then people were already done with me. You see my number calling, you don't pick it up. And so for me to call and for her to pick up my call, I was very grateful that she did. And I couldn't start explaining what was going on. All I told her is, please help me. Please help me. This is now, I think the alcohol is too much now. Get me a rehab. And even when I said get me a rehab, it's not like I knew what a rehab does. In my mind, I knew that this rehab is going to do
Hi,
a checkup
everyone.
on me and
Can see we're getting our tea. Just as you get your tea and your cup, please come back down to the front so we can get started with the next session. Thank you, thank you.
grateful that she did. And I couldn't start explaining what was going on. All I told her is, please help me. Please help me. This is now, I think the alcohol is too much now. Get me a rehab. And even when I said get me a rehab, it's not like I knew what a rehab does. In my mind, I knew that this rehab is going to do a checkup on me.
Hi everyone.
And tell me.
Hi. Yeah, we're done with the first session. I think I learned so many things. I hope everybody else learned something. If you learned something new, just one thing new, you can put your hand up. Okay, I'm seeing. Amazing. That is fantastic. So we've learned a lot with the first session, and super grateful to have that. We're very quickly going to be moving on to our next session, where we've had this lovely video playing as we're here over the break, and Esther will come and give us her story and really show us and let us know what it's like to be in that journey from the beginning and how to walk it through. So as you get your cup of tea, let's just come and sit down. And yeah, for those, I don't know if we're back streaming again, but for those online, welcome again to the Mental Health Month. And this is our training day where we're talking about addiction. We'll have 2 services this Sunday from Andrew and next week as well. Yeah, and a training. This same training will be happening next Saturday as well. Yeah, so invite more people. And this is just the beginning for us. This is our 2nd year, but very soon we'll be setting up a counseling center here on the KCC grounds. So looking forward to that. Now, please, a warm round of applause and a welcome for Esther as she comes to share with us.
Good morning. My name is Esther, and I'm here to continue with, thank you so much, Albert, for the first session. It reminded me of so many things I had gone through. In fact, from beginning to where I'm standing today is really true how you presented it about addiction. So I have been on this journey, and I am 12 years sober. God willing, I will be 13 years sober next month. And it's been quite a journey. So I will start by sharing very briefly about my journey. But as we go along on the support and the help that we can get, and those who are struggling with alcoholism and addiction, and more so focusing on how AA has supported my journey also. But for me, I think the starting point, I liked when Albert talked about women, there's the stigma, and then there's a quick progression. So I may have started drinking in my campus days, but years later, that progression did happen. It took a long time, but at the end, it was very fast. And for me, it was highly triggered with my husband's death, and I couldn't deal with life completely. Just in that dark place of saying, here I am, 2-year-old, no husband, I can't deal, I don't know how to deal. And so the alcohol now went so fast for 5 years. So I truly understood when you were explaining the progression. And so hitting that rock bottom for me, I reached a point of, surely this cannot be how life is. And you talked about the effects of alcoholism, the tremors, not understanding. I'm waking up and my hands are shaking. I too could not write to save me because I had drunk so much. I remember I went to rehab to get help. That is how I sobered up, through rehab. And in rehab, when you're going through the sessions, you had to write notes. It took me a while to write proper notes because of those shakes and the the effects of the alcohol. But I'm grateful that I reached out for help to my family, to my sister, and the words that came out for me was the rehab. But I didn't really know, to be honest, what the rehab was. I've even learned more today again on this journey of dealing with addiction and alcoholism. And so that rehab helped me to understand that I was sick. And thank you for that again, to explain how alcoholism is a disease. I could never, ever understand how I have left home or I've gone to work, and after work I'm saying, for real this time, we are just going to have 2 and we are going to go home. And the 2 becomes more and more and more. And that understanding of the tolerance also, because in the beginning, you start drinking and it's a nice, fun, high thing. You're with friends and it's a good thing. It's okay. It's not harming anybody. But towards the end, no matter how many I drank, I could never get back to that first high. At the end, it was more of, I need this to be normal. I think you mentioned it, to be normal, to feel normal, to stop shaking, to just forget for a while that I don't have any of all these issues. And so the rehab helped me to understand the disease part of what I was going through, and I was very relieved and getting to understand, just like any sick person with any other disease, then there's some help, there's a solution. So I'm in this rehab, I am really praying that they will help me. And I'm grateful that they taught me about it being a disease. And even I remember you talked about assessments and doing an assessment in that rehab. I think apart from Cage, there's the 20-question one. And you answer the questions and kind of like to certify, are you supposed to be here or not? And I remember getting 17 correct and 3 wrong. So I was feeling, I'm not so bad. But the counselor told me, let's go back to the 3 that you failed. And one of them was, have you ever been institutionalized because of your drinking? And of course I said no. And then he asked me, where are you right now? I was in a rehab. Isn't that an institution because of your drinking? So of course the 17 became 20. Welcome, we are going to help you. But I'm glad the rehab helped me. I went there willing and open-minded. I liked what Albert talked about, how to do the interventions. And sometimes, I think for me, my family had given up. They didn't know what to do. I'm glad that we're doing this in Karura to create awareness, to understand what addiction is. Because as much as my mom wanted to help me, she didn't know who to go to or who to ask, or even my sister or anybody around me. All they could do was, Esther drinks too much. We don't know how to help her. So I'm glad that now more awareness so that people can get the help that they need to be able to deal with this disease. So out of rehab, I came out of rehab, and for me, the first thing I knew was, for sure, when I got in, you talked about also the physical aspect. When I got in, I was so finished. I was 45 kgs. Clothes were hanging on me, the ashy, all those things you explained. The eyes, the word, the shakes, everything. And then in 3 months, when I come out, I am 60 kgs. How? Because I was completely finished. So in the rehab, teaching you of all aspects, the holistic, the drinking affected me physically, it affected me mentally, it affected me emotionally, it affected me socially because I had burnt all my bridges, relationships, everything, no form of social. And then spiritually, I was dead. And just being able to understand that whole thing, that I needed to work on myself and follow whatever program they gave me in that rehab, that I'll be okay. I will get back to being a normal human being. So getting out of the rehab, I quickly said, first of all, I can't believe I've been sober for 90 days. That already was a miracle. And so I said, I had been told it's good to get support. It's good to get into AA, for example, that there are AA meetings. It's good to have a sense of God, pray. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm not very good at praying, but I'll do my best. And I'll pray in the morning and pray in the evening, and every single day somehow remain sober. But the long short of it is, I decided also, because there's a spiritual aspect of the program of getting sober, that I needed to go to church. And that's how I came to Karura. I came to Karura for the purpose of saying, dear God, please, whatever you did in 90 days, please help me to continue the way I am. And of course, when I got connected into church, and I must thank Angela. Angela was the one receiving me as a new visitor and called me to come back the following week. And I'm like, this church is calling me to say, come back again. And I came back to church, and I'm so grateful to that. But still, for me, I needed the other support of being able to be with people like me, people who walk this journey. And I get it from the other support, which is what we're going to talk about today, what is AA. So my journey has really been, I know for sure I cannot do it alone. I get help by being coming to church. I also get help through this support group to be able to continue staying sober. I've also learned it's not so much the fact that you have stopped drinking. It is, can you stay stopped? And the difficult part is the staying stopped. And that's why you may hear people sober up, they go through, they get all this help we're talking about, but somewhere along the way they relapse. Why is it that they're relapsing? I can't really explain, but at the end of the day, for me, it's that I still need to have that connection where I can speak to other people who are like myself, and I don't feel the stigma still. There's still a little bit of stigma. I can't exactly go shouting as a lady that I was an alcoholic, a recovered alcoholic, but again, I turn it around and say, there's somebody somewhere who's a lady who's listening to me and can be able to say, if she could do it and she went through all that, I think I can still get help. I think, Albert, also you talked about women tend to drink in the closet. You can't tell that they are struggling. But if I can reach that person just by hearing what I have gone through in terms of my journey, it will also help me to continue staying sober. So we will be discussing about AA today. And part of the other reason also, before I get to the details of AA, is now having come to Karura, which helped me in my journey of recovery, I then said, how else can I be able to help? And that is how I requested that can we start an AA meeting here. I think back in 2018, 2019, and the meeting used to be on Saturdays nights, on Tuesdays, but we'll talk more about that. And the other thing that I think Karura, out of my sharing the story, I remember Pastor Evans once had me sharing my journey in some session that we were having, and he told me, how did it come about? No, I met someone who was coming out of rehab and saying, oh, I've come to church, but I wish sometimes in the rehabs on Sundays when we're not doing our sessions that we could have a church service of some sort. Because here we are being told in rehab that God is love, we can make it, God can restore us, but we really don't have a sense of that. And so that's how Karura started going to the rehabs on Sundays, at jogs, retreat, to be able to just help these people. And some of them, when they came out of the rehab, would then say, at least I already know there's a church called Karura, perhaps I can go to the church, and things like that. So we'll be discussing AA today. I know many people have different perceptions of what AA is. I don't know if they're showing my slides. Okay. We may not quite understand what AA is. So personally, I only knew about AA's existence in Kenya in the rehab. I was very shocked. For me, AA was what I saw in a movie. You're watching some movie, and at some part of the movie, there are some people in a circle and talking. I didn't really know exactly what it was, but I got to know more about it in that rehab because they were using the same program. I wish they could share the slides. So what is AA? Is Alcoholics Anonymous. So Alcoholics Anonymous, the best way to say what exactly it is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it's alcoholics coming together to share their experience, how they have walked this journey, what they have gone through, how it was, how it is now, and to solve their common problem. In this case, their common problem is what? Alcoholism. And the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. And our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, which is what we're trying to do today. AA was founded in 1935 by two gentlemen, Bill and Dr. Bob, who were alcoholics. And in their journey, they discovered that when they spoke to another alcoholic, it reduced their chances of them going to drink, in summary. So they saw how sharing with another alcoholic helped them to continue staying sober. So it's really a fellowship of people, of individuals seeking sobriety. And in those meetings, which I'll talk more about, is really about sharing experiences and supporting each other in that journey of recovery. When I get a call, somebody asking, where can I get, how can I join AA? What are the forms to fill or things like that? And I say, no, you don't need any forms, no money. I just need to tell you there's a meeting at Karura on Tuesday at 6:30. Just go for the meeting and you'll be able to understand how the program works. AA works through 12 steps. It's a program of 12 steps. The 12 steps are a guideline for the recovery. The 12 steps help one to find themselves, to reflect on themselves. And the earlier steps in those 12 steps is, I think the most important one is the first one of admitting that you're an alcoholic and your life is a mess. And going through all that process of getting to accept and admit and surrender that you do need help and life was not really working the way it was. And the other steps help you to continue dealing with trying to come with a sense of believing in a higher power. And the reason they use the word higher power, because AA is not affiliated with any religion, so that anybody who is struggling with alcoholism can join AA. It's not only for a particular, it's not a religious program, so to speak, but it is a spiritual program. It talks about God of your understanding. And in my case, for me, people have different versions of their God of their understanding is as a Christian. And so the 12 steps are a guide, and you go through those 12 steps. Part of the steps also helps you to deal with issues that the things you messed up when you were drinking, and how you can be able to eventually acknowledge that you messed up and to reach that place that you can actually make amends to the things that happened when you were drinking. And after that, really the other steps are about trying to really self-reflect on who you are. We're not perfect human beings. I may have some character defects, I'm not perfect, how do I deal with that? And eventually is also now that I've gone through all that, at the end of it all, I must acknowledge who is God. They talk about prayer and meditation, and at the end, it talks about, the last step talks about service. And service is really saying that I've managed to stay sober. I'm still sober one day at a time. I need to be of service and be able to help the still suffering alcoholic, which is why it's easy for us to say we can come here and talk about AA so that people can understand what AA is and be able to say that there is a program and guide as to how you get to sober. The other thing about AA is it's a worldwide fellowship. We have, there are over 2.2 million AA members in over 150 countries. Again, I go back to what Albert talked about, women and stigma. And after COVID helped AA in the sense that people are not, because of the stigma and shame, it's not very easy for someone to willingly go to a physical AA meeting. Now we have AA meetings online. So somebody can say, okay, I'm not so sure, let me attend the meeting online. I don't have to show my face. I don't have to even write what is my name or anything. And so AA has grown because of that fact that you can have a meeting at any time, any day, anywhere. And so being able to give access and understand that when you come to that AA, you'll now be able to see how are these people working the program, working the 12 steps, and what the meetings are. And AA also, we are not experts, not at all. Albert is an expert. I am not an expert. I can only share my journey. I can only share my experience. And through my experience, I may be able to help somebody else. Also, we get to understand, which was put very clearly, alcoholism is an illness, and the main text that we use for AA actually talks about the mental obsession and the physical craving that one has. When you start drinking, you can't stop, and just trying to understand why that is the case, which Albert explained very well. So there is no membership, it is free. We simply walk the journey together, trying to be able to say we can stay sober one day at a time. We are not cured of alcoholism, because if I take a drink today, I'm done. I'll be back to 12 years ago in that dark place, and it will continue progressing from the point it had stopped. So we're not cured, but we recover from that mental obsession, that cycle of I drink, I start drinking, I get the craving, I drink again, I stop, I'm sober, I feel guilty, why can't I stop? And you keep going round and round and round, and it progresses. So we're not really cured. We really just have to, this disease that we have to maintain and say, how can we stop taking that drink? So through the 12 steps, we are able to do this and exchange our experiences. In Kenya, AA started, I think it's 53 years now. It started in 1971, 1972. And right now we have 47 groups, AA groups. Their meetings, most of our meetings tend to be in churches. We are in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru. We've tried to grow in different places, Malindi. We are as far even as Loitoktok, Voi. But we're online. There are several meetings online every single day. So each of those groups, like the group we have here, Their primary purpose is simply to carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic. So members will always meet, usually meet once a week. At Karura, the meeting is on Tuesdays from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We have different types of meetings: open meeting, closed meetings. An open meeting is intended for alcoholics and non-alcoholics, like family, friends. Some of you are not alcoholics, but you want to come and see what is AA about so that I can go back and suggest to a family member or a friend to go to the AA meeting. I think we've agreed the open meetings are the last Tuesday of the month. So the last Tuesday of the month, anyone who's not an alcoholic can come to that meeting just to see how the meeting is. The rest of the meetings are closed meetings. Those are intended for alcoholics and for those with a problem who have a desire to stop drinking. And then, of course, we have our online meetings, which are readily available. We also have a website. Which gives details of the many other meetings that we have around the country. So again, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So like other illnesses also, alcoholism affects all sorts of people. So it does not choose men, women, old and young, rich, poor, different races, different nationalities, all religions, no religion. It doesn't really matter. Alcoholism affects everybody. And I'm sure if you even think about it yourself, somewhere you know somebody, whether it's in your family, whether it's your colleague, whether it's a friend, there's someone somewhere who is struggling. And we are saying that there's a solution. These are one of the solutions. The program works through sponsorship, where when you start working the 12 steps, you need somebody else who's also part of the program to take you through those 12 steps as a guide. It kind of gives you accountability and helps you to work the program and be able to stay sober one day at a time. What does AA not do? We don't do membership drives. We believe in attraction, not promotion. You see something in someone and you ask, you've really changed, what did you do, please help me. We don't believe in promotion. We don't check up on members to see that they're not drinking. So that newcomer might come for a meeting. I can't be calling them to say, are you still drinking, are you drinking or not? We don't do that. We just work the journey together and encourage people to come to the meetings and to work the steps. AA is not a religious organization. Every member decides what is their concept of God. AA is not a medical organization, so we don't give no one can give prescriptions and things like that. AA does not offer any social services. Yeah, that you're in AA, I'm struggling, can you guys help me? We don't do that. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Then, because of the program, that is the 12-step programs, there are other addictions. Yeah, I think even Albert talked about them. So there are other addictions that have adopted the 12-step program. So you'll have those specifically who their problem is drugs. You have a Narcotics Anonymous. You have Overeaters Anonymous. There are many. So they have adopted the 12-step program to deal with those specific addictions. Within AA, we also have another program called Al-Anon. Al-Anon is a program for family members of those who are struggling. So someone could be having their husband has a problem with alcohol. That wife can be part of Al-Anon to be able to know how to deal with this situation. Also following the 12-step program. So there are many other fellowships that use the 12-step program. Then maybe you ask why anonymity? Anonymity, it disciplines the fellowship to govern itself, because you also want two sides of it, that when I go to that AA meeting, because anonymity, nobody is going to now say, like my first AA meeting, I remember seeing a friend I had not seen for very many years. And in my mind, I was like, okay, we all landed here. But I could not come out of that meeting and go and say that I saw him in that meeting. Just to safeguard, so that people can be comfortable when they come to the meeting, they are safe and say that, yeah, nobody is going to say that I am here. Then the other thing, yes, so I want to take a little break there so that we can also hear, we're here to find, yes, I know I'm an alcoholic, I know this person, how do I help? When I tell them to say we go to an AA meeting, what does that mean? Which is what I've been talking about. But we also want to be able to share how AA has helped people in that journey. There are many journeys to recovery. People go to rehab, others don't go to rehab. Others can go to AA only and still stay sober. Others can decide to go to church. There are many routes to getting sober. So we're just saying these are different solutions of how to support yourself if you're on this journey, and so that you're not going to relapse and take that drink again. So I have two people whom I'd like them to share their experience on this journey. I have Maggie and Solo. So I'll ask Maggie to come and just share for about 10 minutes, and then Solo will also follow, and then I will come back and close at the end. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi, my name is Maggie, and I'm a member of Alcoholic Anonymous. And it's such a pleasure being on this stage. This is my home church. I can't believe that I'm on this stage sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So I can really relate to Albert's template. It felt as if he was saying my whole story from beginning to the end. I'm the people who started drinking when I was very young. My first sip I had when I was 10. And I can't remember where I got it, but I remember I was 10. And the first effect was, I loved it. I loved every part of it. I loved the effect. I loved blacking out. And I wanted to do it again. I knew I wanted to do it again. But because I'm a child, I couldn't seek out opportunities where I was going to drink. And my parents, I'd never seen my parents drink. My mom had never drunk. My dad had never drunk. In fact, I was brought up in church. And that's the first memory I remember. And so we had a lot of church, we had a lot of God in our home. But I tasted this thing that I wanted to do it again. And so even going on as the years passed by, I would seek out situations where I could drink. And every time I drank more than I would drink the other time. And the effect was more. And so that really affected, I would say, that really affected a lot of, I would say, my developmental side of it. School was not very important. Society was not important. I was never the child who would say, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. For me, I really didn't think I would live past 30 years. I'm shocked that I'm alive today. And so by the time I was getting to teenagehood and as an adult, the progression was really, 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 I'd started the tremors. I had hangovers. I was the child who would get booze to school because that's the only way I could survive. I couldn't function without drinking. And so at 27, so basically I drank from when I was 10 to 27, life had gotten very, very miserable. I was a mom then. I didn't know how to be a mom. And the sad part of it is my family really didn't know that I was drinking. I hid it. I laughed the part where you said you can live with someone for so many years without knowing they have a problem. So I was a girl in a Christian family. Like, how would I explain why I'm drinking? And so I hid it. I hid it from my mom, from my dad, and from everyone around me until I could not hide anymore. And so actually my mom found out about it, I think 5 months before I stopped. And she couldn't understand. And so she tried taking me to church to be prayed for. And I remember one thing she said, that it was a demon and it needs to be cast out, which I tried. I was willing. We went to church. I was prayed for. And after that particular session, I went and drank. And so for me, I knew I didn't have any hope until this time I was watching this series and they were talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, okay, let me try if there's such a thing in Kenya. And so I Googled. So AA, we have a tire company called AA. That's what I found. I was like, I think this is a Western thing. We can't have AA in Kenya. We are not this modern. I was like, okay, I'm left to die, because I was really desperate. And I remember making a prayer and telling God, so it's either I die or I get sober. And so I tried again after the progression. And at this point, the progression is very, very fast. By the time you hit your rock bottom, the progression gets very quickly. You lose everything you think you cannot lose. I was the person who, in my background, I couldn't write a check. And that's my career. I'm the person with the sugar until I stopped taking sugar. So I Googled again. And then I now went all out. I was like, Alcoholics Anonymous Kenya. And a page came with meetings, with a number. I called someone, and they picked up. I was like, okay, so I think I have a problem. I'm drinking, and I can't stop drinking. How can you help me? I was like, come for a meeting. I was like, what can a meeting do? I've been drinking all my life, and I need a solution. So I went for my first meeting. People were happy and laughing. And it really annoyed me. I really didn't want it because I was miserable. I was dirty. Alcohol had taken such a toll on me. My organs were failing. And so I went to another meeting, and they told me, keep coming back. And I was like, okay. And they hugged me. And you remember the symptoms, the smells, the odor. That is how I showed up in my first AA meeting. And so they told me about the 12 steps, which had a lot of God in it. And at that point, I was done with God. I was like, by the way, I don't understand why. This is the only place you tell me I can get help, and you're talking about God. And they told me, God can be your higher power. I was like, okay, what does that mean? I was like, you need someone greater than yourself to get you out of addiction. I was like, okay, I think I can roll with that. And that made sense. In my first years, and it helped me keep coming back. The withdrawals were bad, and so when I got sober, that's when the realization of I am an adult, because I started drinking at 10, I stopped at 26, so my mind stopped at 10. I was like, I'm an adult, I can't, how am I doing life sober? How am I doing life as an adult? And these wonderful people were like, I'll help you. And so I went to school, not the traditional school, but the school of life, through the program. They taught me, this is how you do, this is how you become a lady, and I am here because of the program. I celebrated 6 years in December. And so we have something called How It Works. And the last part of it, it says, God will and would if you are sought. And so I got to a point in my recovery where I was like, okay, I need to seek something greater than myself. Where do I find it? And so that's how I came to Karura. I was like, okay, let me give it a chance. And then I came. And my friend Esther was a member here. And I couldn't understand how you're in church and in AA at the same time. I was like, it's possible, come see. So I would come and sit at the end, and then I would listen. I was like, okay. And then I started moving closer, closer, closer. Until now, I took up service positions, because another thing AA teaches us is we need to be of service to our community. And that's how I started service in this church. And I'm so happy that I am of service as a sober mom, as a sober woman. And AA gave me my life back. I get to interact with people who are like me. I get to interact with people who, I will never tell them anything crazy. Like, my craziest story, it's their humor. So it's comedy. I can't be sober because, oh, my mom did this, my mom did this, oh, and they'll be, you need to become an adult, you need to show up, and you need to be responsible. So I'm truly grateful, and that's my story. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Solomon, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and also a member of AA and God's son. And next, I think in, what month are we? August, 16th of August, I'll be turning 3 years sober. Thank you. By the grace of God. And it is in itself a miracle. And I'm grateful, really grateful. Today I'm grateful also to be here to share my story with you. And I'll begin with, I started drinking at the age of 14. And tomorrow is my birthday, so I'm turning 17 tomorrow. So thank you. It's my 3rd birthday sober. And why I'm emphasizing on that is because the maturity aspect, I think part of the symptoms that Albert shared were the maturity aspect, you know. Starting at that age, I think I stagnated at that point, you know. So everything I did in my active years was either immature, childish, or otherwise. You know, there was nothing that could have shown, yes, I have the beards, I have the white hair, but I do not have the characteristics of an adult. Why? Because I'm not thinking like one. I have not been able to be one. So alcohol stunted my growth. And the reason why I began drinking was, I think it wasn't influenced from anybody, it's just curiosity. I was curious as to why I had my first drink at an event. It was a concert that was organized by a radio station called Pulse FM. And they had brought a Tanzanian artist. So people were there dancing all around. It was on Mamangina Drive in Mombasa. I've been brought up in Mombasa. So people are dancing around me. People are talking to girls. People are just enjoying, having the time of their life. And I'm there looking at them, just wondering, what the hell is this? Why did I even come here? Until one of the people we went with decided to go and buy a drink, and they brought me a blackcurrant. They laced it with vodka. And the feeling that I had from that point going forward is just awesome. I think the way I see these bright lights is the way my world brightened up at that particular moment. I didn't know then that it was going to be a struggle that was going to last for 20 good years. But at that particular point, it made sense. I was free. I could talk to the girls there. I could dance. And I was happy, you know, I felt good. And why I felt that good is because my self-esteem had taken a beating. I was bullied because I was a big kid. And Swahili people are brutal when it comes to insults. So my self-esteem had taken a beating. So I wasn't much of an outgoing kid, and I was bright in school. So number one, number two, we were competing with a lady named Jemima for that position. So that one also was a cause for bullying, and it took a toll on me to the extent that I was not a people person. So I kept to myself most of the time. That day when I had that first drink, I interacted with people in a level that I thought, now this is life. And I wanted that each and every time. And I chased that for the longest time ever. But I could never ever for the life of me duplicate that feeling that I got that very first time. And so the only solution was to do what? Keep drinking. Maybe it will come after several more sachets. after several more bottles, after several more whatevers, And I added on top of that, there was weed to eat. At one point, I was at Senior Chief Koinange High School before it became a girls' school. And at one point, I had a snort of cocaine. And I didn't like it. I thank God for that day, because I stayed in the dorms for a whole week, and I had a runny stomach, I was sweating. Everything that you can think of that could go wrong with my system went wrong, and that was the end of it. But for alcohol and and smoking and marijuana, that one I kept going at it. Marijuana not so much, because I hated being being in control of my senses, as if I was with the alcoholism, but I thought I had it in control. So it took a toll on everything that I did. From the education, I never performed well after that, because everything I wanted was outside there, or so I thought. So I wanted that bad boy image. I wanted those bad girls. I wanted everyone who saw me passing could tell their kids, I don't want to see you with that person. That was what made me feel important. It made me feel great, and I went after that. And while all the same, I'm still chasing after this high that I felt, but I couldn't find it. And so I lost a lot of things in the process. I lost myself. I didn't have an identity. I couldn't tell you who I was. I couldn't tell you what I was doing in this life. I didn't see any meaning as to being alive, just to drink, to party, to have fun. And it went on like that for years. I was lucky to get jobs after jobs, but I kept ruining them, because I never went past 2 months. The first salary I would behave or slightly drink, but the second month's salary, I would come back after it was finished, So nobody could tolerate that, and I ended up losing jobs. And that also didn't hit home that I had a problem. I still blamed every other person and every other thing. My parents this, my parents that, my father wasn't there, my mother this, my mother didn't do, my brother did, all that. But I never took a look inside me. And it kept on doing, I kept doing geographicals. I would move from our up countries at Banana here. I would move from Banana, go back to Mombasa. From Mombasa, go to Lamu, move to another place. I was doing geographicals, trying to find whatever I was trying to find. But all along, I didn't know that, one, I was running away from God, and two, I was fighting with myself, And I got sober at some intervals. At one point, I got sober for 2 years. At that point, I was in church, and I was preaching even. I felt good being in that presence, But it didn't last. Someone came from Dubai after finishing their contract, and we went out, and after that, everything took a turn for the worst, And what drove me out of going back to church was the fact that I was used as an example. So when people would say, you see, that one was preaching, now he's seated at the back there, busy laughing. So that one put me off church for a bit, and I just decided, let me just drink myself away. Went on drinking. I don't have memory of some of the years that I lived. They're coming back now that I'm sober, but most of them I don't. At some point, I also quit for another year, and in that year, I found a job. I got a job, ruined it after drinking, then got sober again for like 6 months. And then those 6 months brought me to Nairobi. A friend of mine gave me a job managing a club at Ruiru. That was not the original plan. The original plan was I was to go manage his mine in Tanzania. But then how those plans changed, I don't know. I was sober then for a while. Even when I was managing that place, I was praying to keep that sobriety, because I was loving the way I was feeling, and my body was, I was regaining my weight and everything, and my system was functioning. But it didn't last long. After the coronavirus hit, we had to shut down. And at that moment when we shut down, I think the boredom and having not being paid, because we were taking care of the club, we were staying there. And you're not paid, you have to the guy has to decide when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, I didn't like that lack of freedom. I don't like being told what to do up until today. So I think that brought out some sense of rebellion in me. And I drank, I think, 250,000 worth of drinks from that place, So when the guy came to find out we were doing a stock taking, what I used to do, I used to fill water. I used to drink half to fill water. But it got to a point I didn't care enough, so I drank even the ones that had water in them, and I finished the whole thing. So he found out, needless to say, I was sent away, but I left with a wife. I had found a girl who used to work there. She was pregnant. Went, got a son. I got sober for a minute, found a job. I was lucky enough every time I got sober, I got a job. So I got a job with a friend of mine at Voi. We went, my wife and I, had my kid there, but I didn't quit drinking. The only thing I did was quit smoking, because at some point I found myself smoking in the house with my toddler there. So When my son was born, for some moment, I thought it would change me because I was looking for something to hold on to for sanity. I thought now having a wife and having a son would give me that anchor point for me to get sober or stay sober, but it didn't. In fact, I think I got worse now because now compiled the financial problems. At some point I used to borrow someone 200 shillings for supper. But that I would bring 100 bob, and I drink 100 bob first and bring the 100 bob. I didn't care much about whether it was enough for a lactating mother or not. I first had to have my fix. So it got so worse that she left. She left me in Mombasa, came to Banana. I didn't know that she came here. So I went on a binge. I went on a drinking spree. And it landed me in a Changaden. I think I stayed there for, a month or two. A friend of my brother's informed him where I was and told them I was going to die, so they sent transport for me to be sent to Nairobi. When I came to Nairobi, I was sober, until I found out that my wife hadn't gone to their home, as in for good, they had gone to my place. I think that gave me a sense of, it's not that bad. So I drank again, even after getting sober for that period of time. After drinking for a while, she left now, went to her home for good. That one, I think, took a toll on me. The first time in Mombasa, I had skipped that. When I went to my house and I opened the door, it was padlocked. I opened the door, I only saw a carpet and one seat. I had to close that door like 5 times, just thinking, is it the right place I'm in? I went to the neighbors, opened the door, so yeah, this is not mine. So I went back there. It gave me a shock of some sort because I'd had stories of people doing that. One of my former bosses had been through that. It shocked me, and I thought that was shock value enough for me to get sober, but it didn't. So this second one, when she left now for good, I think shocked me to the core, because the one thing I had as an anchor point was my son. But now he was gone, and then I couldn't communicate with them. When I called, no one was picking my calls, and it was tough. It took a toll. So I decided now that I'm going to drink myself out of my misery, because I'd attempted suicide twice in Mombasa. It didn't work. For some reason, every time I tried, something happened that deterred me from successfully completing the mission. The first time, it was a cab of some sort that was standing over. It tripped me, so I fell short of where I intended to jump. The second time, someone came out of the blues. I was at Nyali Bridge, and someone came out of the blues, started asking me for the time, and we started talking, and that was the end of that. So I was scared of committing suicide, so I thought I would drink myself to death. And I tried. I really did try, because in those 2 months leading to the August 16th date, I can't even tell you where I was, what I was doing. But one thing I know is I didn't eat. I could only snack on tiny things, just to keep the energy so that I can drink more. But I was fully intended to do away with myself. Until to a point whereby I had a psychotic break. I could see people asking for pangas to chase me with. I could hear voices. I'm sleeping in my house at Banana, and my head is showing me that there are people outside there with a gadget that can see through the wall, and they're looking at me. So I can't sleep. So an uncle of mine heard of that, and they took me to a doctor friend of mine. So we sat with him, we talked. I didn't get medication, didn't get nothing, we just talked. And in that talking is when he told me that I should make a regular attempt at coming to talk with him when I have a problem. Then a friend of mine who has graced our presence heard of my situation, and they called on me. And they asked me to meet them at a certain place on a Saturday. I didn't know what was up, but I could do anything at that point just to fit in. I was feeling odd, but I was sober then. So the friend took me to an AA meeting. It was at Karura Level 4 Hospital. And then getting there, there was a lady who was sharing, I remember clearly. And what she was saying and what I had been doing in my life were the same. So I'm thinking to myself, why is this lady sharing my story? And I thought back, and I decided this friend of mine who had called me to this meeting had discussed with this lady, and now they're trying to woo me in. Immediately my mind decided this is a setup. I'm being taken to either Madare or something, because these people think I'm mad. So immediately I started calculating of a way I'm going to get away. But then after the lady shared, because she was still using, if I may say that, there were other dignified people there. They were decent, clean. They had, They shared the same things, similar to what the lady had shared and similar to what had done. They shared on the debauchery, the hopelessness, the unhygienic circumstances. You know, they shared everything that was me, the loss, the failures, and everything else. And it started resonating, but a bit. I still thought it was a setup. Until when we were walking away from that place, heading to the banana stage, someone gave me a small big book. We have a book like this one, but a small one. I read that book, the whole of it, cover to cover that night, because I was looking for the answer to what it is. And I read those stories of people similar to mine, and I'm looking at the book, I'm flipping, and it's published in 19-somethings, way back. And I can't believe it, you know. I can't believe that someone back those years when there was no technology, there was no nothing, is suffering the same thing that I'm suffering. And I was curious enough to keep coming back. So I went to the next meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting till it started making sense. And how did it make sense? Number one, I got a reprieve, a daily reprieve from alcoholism. In what manner? The fellowship. Sitting down with people similar to you, talking about whatever. There is nothing under the sun we can't talk about, and there's no judgment. Number two, these people promised to love me till I could love myself, and they did, and they still do that up until today. Number three, I was able to know myself. You know, I got an identity. Someone could ask me, with minus the titles, who am I? Minus being a father, a husband, who am I? And I got that through this program. And I have kept coming back to this program. I've been of service. They taught me how to serve others. They taught me what it means to just be selfless, you know, because I was selfish for the longest time ever. All those things I was doing, as I said, I was fighting against God and fighting myself. But I found to love myself. I found God. I have a relationship with God that supersedes everything. And I'm grateful that even being here, it is another insurance against that first drink. I'm insured against that drink because I've been of service today. And this program does that. This program is, I don't know, it's wholesome, if I can use that. It is a wholesome program whereby we do not subscribe to any religion per se. You can come as you are. And the only thing is that you want to stay sober, we got you. And I'm grateful for this program and the fellows that are with me here for keeping me sober. And thank you for listening to me. And may God bless you.
Thanks, Maggie and Solo, for sharing your experience with and your journey. So just to finish up is really to say that, I don't know where you can, we have, I wanted to talk just to say the resources that AA has. We've talked about the meetings. Already we have a meeting here in Karura on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 7:30. And the last Tuesday of the month will always be an open meeting, which means those who are non-alcoholic can attend the meeting. We have other meetings around this area. We actually have an AA meeting at PCA Evergreen, Runda, on Wednesdays from 6:30 to 7:30. We also have another meeting at a rehab in Thindigwa called Primrose on Saturdays, 11 to 12. The kind of resources we have, like Solo was talking about a book, we have literature, the book that helps us to work the program. As you can see, it has no title on top, it's hidden, because it's called Alcoholics Anonymous. So we have books, we have pamphlets, and a lot, and you can also go to our AA Kenya website. I think it's up there, yes. Our AA Kenya website, where you can get a list of all the meetings around Kenya, including both physical and online. We also have a helpline, and so you can call just to be able to see, to get help, or refer someone to just go to the website and they'll be able to find a meeting near them. In conclusion, we're just saying that AA is our support. We may have gotten sober straight to using AA. We may have gone to rehab and then joined AA. But AA has helped us to have a different way of life than we had when we were drinking. And it's not so much about not drinking, but it's really about living sober and being able to continue that way one day at a time. So it's a program for a new way of life without alcohol. And as you can see, many people have successfully used it all around the world. I was also the same person in rehab when I was given the big book to read. Normally, it's called the big book. I said, how can a book help me stay sober? I have many problems. And then when I started reading, I was like, these people have been talking about me. And when you realize that the book, the whole fellowship was started in 1935, and I'm in rehab in 2012, who is Esther to say they are wrong? The only thing I have to lose is if it doesn't work for me, so let me try. So yeah, so that is what we have on our side. And I thank Karura, because we already started the AA meeting way back a few years ago. And this, I've always been looking forward to an opportunity that the church can do more. And this is already one of those things of creating awareness of what alcoholism is. And I'm sure it's not just the sessions we have this month, but to continue to support in every way. The whole issue is very stigmatizing, and not many people are comfortable. And I'm sure part of the congregation, there's someone struggling somewhere and they don't know what they can do. So at least now they have an idea of what kind of help they can get being part of this church. So thank you very much for allowing us to be part of this.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that was just amazing. Thank you as well for having 3 stories being shared on just what AA has been able to do and how it's been able to help. We'll actually now go into the panel section. So I know there's people online. If you guys have your questions, please resend those in, as well as here. We'll have, everybody who spoke, as well as Arthur, I think, Albert, coming in as well. And 2 others. So we'll just let them set up, and Madam Koi Kibuga will help us moderate this panel.
Thank you very much, Gitari. Gitari and I will come back down and we'll be roving around. So those of you who are in the back and have a question, please do come up front so that we can take your questions. Albert has invited 2 other people. We'll give them 2 minutes each to just kind of introduce themselves and give us a context of what their breakthrough moment was, or their watershed moment was, and then we'll just open up for some questions. And thank you very much, Esther. You already answered 2 of the questions I had. Can I come to Alcoholics Anonymous if I'm not an alcoholic? So thank you for telling us about the open meetings and the closed meetings. And the other question I had was, what about the other addictions? Where do the other people with addictions go? The gambling, sex addiction, narcotics, and so on. So thank you for highlighting that there are other anonymous groups, and the Al-Anon, which is for family members who are dealing with alcoholics in their homes and how best to support them. So Albert, I'll ask you to introduce your 2 friends, colleagues, and please, 2-3 minutes, just kind of say what's your name and what was your breakthrough moment?
Okay, thank you, Koi. On my extreme left is Christmas Kimaru, who is an addiction professional, and next to him is Daniel Gashanja, who's also an addiction professional. They'll introduce themselves further.
Yes.
So Christmas, perhaps you can start.
Hi, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
I'm Crispus Kemaru. I'm an addictions counselor. I'm also a recovering alcoholic, 8 years sober now. That is after 17 years struggle. And in that struggle, I lost so much. And that is what motivated me to branch into addiction counseling. I lost my job, a good job at Safaricom. I lost my job as a high school teacher. I lost so much, just like the others have shared. And I'm motivated to help anyone who is maybe struggling with any addiction. An addiction doesn't have to be a substance addiction. It can be also behavioral, like gambling and sex, masturbation, and all, porn, and all those. So I'm here just to maybe share and motivate someone.
Thank you. And I think I watched your Mother's Day message on social media and about the prayers of your mother.
Yes.
And
yes,
you are 3 siblings. You were 4 brothers, and all of you are now sober.
All of us are sober.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
What a praise report. Thank you. He sent a very good message on social media telling us mothers, please keep praying. And in there was your testimony. Thank you so much.
Hello. I'm audible.
Hello. Yes.
Praise Jesus.
Amen.
My name is Daniel Gashanja. I'm an addictions professional also. Aside from that, I'm a psychologist, and I run a mental health facility known as Ambassadors Wellness Center. But apart from that, I'm a child of God who's in recovery. And my journey is a representation of restoration, that God does restore. I started drinking when I was 14 years old. Had a very serious issue with my education, my family, my relationships. Typically, I was your brother or your cousin or your uncle back in the shags, who's loitering around the small shopping centers and being sent for packs of cigarettes and being sent to get some Muraya somewhere so that he can just get some little booze. But God has restored me from university dropout. I was studying actuarial science before I got deep into the addictions, and right now found rehab, got sober, found the support groups, AA, was helped to stay stopped, and I started back my journey. I started growing back from a certificate level to a diploma level to a degree level, now doing my master's. And has been a wonderful journey, being able to help others, being able to set up an institution where people can come, find hope, get restored to. And today we are here just to inspire you in terms of the psychological context and also the support context, and tell you that there is a solution and things do change and people can recover and regain back their lives and become constructive and productive people in the society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And those of you who are watching us online and those who are here, we will list all these people who are professionals as resources, so that if you have a need, you can always reach out, look at our resource list and be able to reach out to them directly. Of course, we have Albert, Esther, and Maggie, who are here with us as well. So I'm open for questions. Gitare has a mic. Just indicate that you have a question. We'll get the questions also online, and we'll be able to ask. So any questions? Mm-hmm. Yes?
Could you talk a little bit more about behavioral addictions and how that can impact someone's life?
Okay, who is that question to directly? There are 4 professionals here.
Dr. Albert.
Dr. Albert start, and then the rest of his team can help.
Thank you for that prophetic word, Wangashi. I'm not yet a doctor, but I will be one day. Behavioral addictions are being more and more recognized now. Anecdotally, as Christmas has mentioned, there's gambling addiction, which has been recognized previously. It's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. It's recognized by the WHO also. I said that anything that affects how you feel is potentially addictive. And what happens with behavioral addictions is whatever the behavior is, depending on your own genetic makeup, it may make you feel so good or so different from what you were feeling before that you find yourself compelled to repeat it. And again, this is a very individual thing, but the effect becomes predictable. You begin to look forward to it. You begin to think about it. And the understanding is that the structural changes that happen in the brain because of a chemical addiction also happen in the same way due to a behavioral addiction. There's a lot of research being done on it now, especially with the rise of the internet. Internet has brought two distinct addictions, particularly one is porn, and the other one is internet gaming. And people are beginning to do those destructively. I once had a client with a hunchback because he was always peering like this because he was playing games with his phone. And when he went through a process of treatment, he began to stand up straight. So the compulsion and the obsession is very similar to that of a chemical. And all the other markers, all the other characteristics, doing so destructively, despite, you can see it's destructive, but you still do it. Coming to a place where you're doing it to feel normal. People with sex addictions talk about that they no longer get the thrill they used to get, but there's a comfort they get from it, which is lacking when they don't do it. So perhaps the thing that I think differentiates behavioral addictions from substance addictions is for many of them it's easier to hide them, at least for a time. You don't have the physical signs like you do with a chemical. But in terms of destructiveness, they're the same. And to the extent that the destructiveness affects other parts of your life, it soon becomes evident that there's a problem. Gambling has really destroyed people and continues to destroy people. But so are these others. So I don't know if that answers you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't get your name. Wangeshi. Thanks for that question. One of the biggest issues we are having today as a country, when we are talking about addictions, we're even moving away from substance addictions. Gambling, and when we talk about gambling, I'm specifically talking about aviator. So many young men, and we have had this campaign for the last few months, so many young people have become hooked to aviator gambling. These are, if you look at most young men, when they are on the phones, they are not even, they are not playing online games. They are on those aviator games, and they are losing a lot of money. I've had cases where people are losing millions. So just adding on what Dr. By the way, I also thought it's Dr. Albert. So blessings. So adding to what Albert has said, if there are 4 C's, that's when we define anything as an addiction. There's the loss of control. You are doing this thing despite the consequences. That's another C. Then there's the cravings and the compulsion. So someone who has a behavioral addiction will try to quit, will try to stop. They will make the promises, they will even, start even the counseling process, but they will not be able to stop. So the 4 C's, loss of control, doing this thing, or the substance, using the substance despite the consequences, the cravings, and the compulsion, the 4 C's. So it is as addictive, any behavior, it's as addictive as any substance. So it also requires the same interventions that Albert had talked about. Thank you.
Did you have something else to add?
Yes, I'll also add to that. Thank you, Wangeshi, for that question, and thank you, fellow panelists. The world is evolving, and as Albert said, there is a lot of information that is coming in, even in our own studies, and behavioral addictions are becoming the new thing. And the thing that is not it's not largely seen. It's like it's in the undergrounds. People are suffering at home and in different places, but it's not visible. They're just walking around, and it seems like people are enjoying the normal lives, and this is what is increasing even the rates of suicide, because people are suffering in the closet, they are alone. But the good thing is that treatment is there, and we talk about prevention, we talk about treatment, and then we talk about support. So there is an area where people are being sensitized to this thing is there, they're given the awareness, they're given tips of how to not get into it, but also there is a treatment part. And one of the misconceptions that is there is that our rehabs and our counseling centers are all about alcohol and weed and all these heroin and the drugs, the substances themselves. But treatment is evolving, and the good thing is that even our rehabs are embracing the context of treating, having treatment plans for people who are in these addictions. So there is treatment for them, and also in liaison with groups, anonymous groups that are there for people who are going through these addictions. There's a well-known group, Gamblers Anonymous, it's here in Kenya. People are getting the support they need. There's Sexaholics Anonymous for people with issues of sex, porn, masturbation, all such things. So there is the prevention angle, which professionals are doing a good job. There's also the treatment angle, and also there is the support for them, the same way there is support for alcoholics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, one of the things I've been doing as an educator, a little bit of research on the prevalence of ADHD in children these days. And one of the studies I found was saying that exposing children to screens before the age of 2 interferes with their neural networking. And I'm sure some of you have seen those videos where a child's phone is taken away and the child goes ballistic. So one of the things I have taken away from both Albert and all of your testimonials is the earlier the exposure, the greater the risk. So it's not just now for substances, but also for technology. Children below the age of 2 really do not need to be seeing a screen. And they're showing that it is impacting their neural networking. So thank you very much for those. I want to take another question. Yes, so Mama, please, you'll have to, Gitare, can you reach her quickly? Oh, and there's one also in the back. Thank you. Let's take those 2 questions before we answer.
Good afternoon. My name is Eve. I serve here at Karura Community Chapel.
We can't hear you, Faith.
Okay, I want to ask Maggie. You came from a Christian home, so, and maybe even Chris, where did you guys get the alcohol at 10 and 14? And then the other question is in regards to, I hear you came to a rock bottom by yourselves. Is there a place for family members taking people to rehab before the realization that the person has come to a rock bottom?
Thank you for the question. We'll take one more, and then I think Maggie, Chris, and please remind me your name. Dan, you can take the first 2 questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Esther. I have a question, and I think I'll direct it to Maggie and Albert. So you said that, in the case of Maggie, that you are actually suffering, but those around you were not really picking. Or if they were picking, they were not bringing it up to you. So if, for instance, you have a relative or a friend that you can see they're struggling, how do you bring this topic of getting help? And it's not like you're forcing them to go to rehab, because you find sometimes rehab, if someone hasn't come to the full realization they need help, they will resent it. So how do you bring that conversation and even attach them to communities like AA? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I'll start with the first one. So I started drinking when I was 10, but by that time I'd gone through a lot of trauma, and that is the different traumas that just go through the family. So this particular point, we had gone to a graduation party, And you know how kids are told to play around, and the adults were drinking. And that was my first interaction. And then about rock bottom. So one thing that I've seen in the rooms that is Alcoholic Anonymous, a rock bottom is very important, because for me, by the time I was stopping at 26, I needed to hit a rock bottom for me to say, I am done and I need help. Before that, I was not done. I would have lied to you. I wasn't ready enough to listen to what I was being told. And also to link it to the other question that was asked is, I hid it a lot, and for me it was a cry for help. I was, yes, secretly drinking, but I needed help. Because I've always felt different. I've always felt as if I didn't belong within my own family. I felt like my parents didn't understand me, and no one was listening to me. I felt like the things that happened to me as a child shouldn't happen to any human being. So I had a lot of anger within me. I had a lot of hurt and a lot of bitterness. So for me, it was easy to hide because there was a lot of things that I was hiding. What I needed at that point is for someone to tell me, I love you, and I'm here for you, and when you are ready, I am here without judgment. And so those words, I looked for them in the bottom of a glass because it was always there for me and it made me forget. And anytime I needed it, it was there until it wasn't working and I had to find an alternative. So, and this is where we borderline what Albert had talked about an enabler. You can help, but become an enabler. And that is because one of the art is we manipulate. We manipulate a lot. As an alcoholic, I manipulated a lot. So this is where also God has to come in and the different materials that are there for you to know how to support that person. And that's why we have programs like Al-Anon, where you will get to know where do I come in and where do I let the person hit their own rock bottom. Thank you.
Chris? Sorry. Oh dear. No. Solo. Sorry, Solo. Where did you get the alcohol was the question. You're good. Yeah.
Okay. For me, personally, it was a friend who brought it when we were at that event. But after that, we used to have a shop. So I will go to my mom's shop and volunteer to stay at the shop so that I know in the evening she'll give me 200 shillings or 300 bob. That is what I used to fund my drinking with. She didn't know that was what it was for. So mine was just, I worked my way around the system to just get away to purchase the drinks.
Albert, in answering your question, at what point do we show concern or as family members or send somebody to a rehab? Please talk about the ability of having tough love but still love. And I think how do we deal with the manipulation? Because we feel guilty. As family members, you feel like, oh, maybe there's something I did wrong or I haven't done. And how would we manage as CLGs, as church leaders who are working with families who are saying, but she said, but he said, but now what do I do? That's, I think, a very important question.
Okay. Well, two aspects. One is at what point can you enforce help? And then what do you do with resistance? And it used to be thought in the old days that you had to wait for somebody to hit bottom, as Maggie has said. But we also now understand that you can raise the bottom by the right kinds of interventions and providing information, but at the same time showing unconditional love or unconditional support. Remember that the addict, there's a lot of self-loathing, they hate themselves. They're facing rejection in different ways. You didn't finish school, your peers have left you behind. You know that you're not at where you need to be or where your peers are. So they're all forms of rejection. And so just getting that message that we're with you, we understand you, we love you regardless, it can help to raise our bottom, can help to get the person to realize that there's a level of pain beyond which they don't want to go, which is really what the bottom is. You don't have to have lost everything. Just an awareness that this pain I'm feeling is not worth whatever I'm getting from the drug. That cost-benefit thing. And then when it comes to, at what point do you intervene? Can you force people into rehab? Again, this is a controversial thing. It has been shown that there are people who are compelled into rehab who go there kicking and screaming, but when they meet other people who are like them, as all these guys have said, then the resistance falls away because they're with people who are a little further along in terms of their recovery journey and getting help and so forth, and they're able to identify with those people and tell themselves, if their drinking was like mine, then maybe my recovery or sobriety can be like theirs. And come to a place of acceptance earlier or sooner than they would have. But it's controversial because we have human rights, you're dealing with adults, they have a right to make their own choices and so forth. So what doctors do, the standard they have is that this person's behavior risks putting themselves at harm or harming other people. At that point, a doctor is under the law allowed to compel you into an institution. But that risk of harm has to be evident. So for the families or even for CLGs, what do you do if somebody is, rebuffing your attempts at helping, etc.? We talk about tough love, which is, I love you, I'll never stop loving you, but I'm not going to put up with this behavior either. And so, depending on the relationship, depending on the situation, you may have to throw somebody out of home, or you may have to stop supporting them in the way you've been supporting them, or bailing them out, like going to get them out of police cells and things like that. So if they land into the problems with the law, that's up to them, they'll sort it out themselves. And you can exercise that tough love at a point of leverage when they need you for something. So what I tell families, two things. One is they may only have leverage when the person approaches them for help for one thing or another. And secondly, they as families need to decide what they're going to put up with and what they won't, and establish boundaries accordingly. And this is not easy, because when you put up a boundary, it will be tested. These guys are manipulators, as we've heard. They're intelligent, they know you well, and so forth. They know which buttons to press and so on. And so it becomes a journey, and it can even be exhausting, which is why Al-Anon exists. It exists to help those affected by somebody else's addiction. And it exists to help that individual, not because of the addiction per se, that's the context that led them there, but because of the problems that that person then encounters within themselves. I've seen mothers, I've seen parents become more sick than the addict because of all the stuff they're having to put up with. So it does become complicated, and it takes time. It's not something that you'll deal with overnight. And so what I would guide anyone affected by somebody else's addiction is, don't keep quiet. Seek help for yourself, as well as guidance on how to help this person. But no, we say that addicts don't have relationships. They take people hostage. And that's how it feels. Like my life has stopped because of this guy's problem. So, and it will continue that way until you put your foot down. So there's a balance. It's not cut and dried. It's not black and white. Every situation is different. But if you're governed by love, and this person will get it, they'll sense that love. They'll sense that they're not rejecting me, it's just this behavior that they've refused, then that will also get to them. Because there are times, and all of us can attest to this, even in the worst of our worst places, there were days we'd have a clear mind and realize this is rubbish. This can't continue. But then that window would close, and then we're back in it. So, yeah.
So 2 things I've picked up from what you've said. One is it takes time. 2, even to intervene, we need help. And I think mainly because of what you're talking about, the stigma, the shame, what is this doing to our family, and also the risk of tough love. I think one of the things that, as a mother, I am afraid, if I kick that child out today and something happens to that child, it's my fault. So being able to get the kind of help you're talking about helps me resolve those issues in myself that allow me to love the person in my life that is struggling. Thank you so much. We have a question from Nahashon, who is online. Thank you very much for your question. I will read it. And I think in a way you've kind of addressed it, but if anyone wants to add to that, to address this question, please do. How can I encourage someone who is struggling with addiction to acknowledge their problem and consider getting help without causing conflict or making the situation worse?
If I may take that one. Number one, they already know. That is the first thing you should understand. We know we have a problem. We know something is wrong. But the thing is, we have not come to terms with it already. We have not accepted it, you know. And trust you me, if you're not gentle about it, there will be conflict. There's no easy way to go about it. The easiest way would be, for example, introduce me to them. You know, I'm speaking their language. You see, you know about the AA now or any other support group. Introduce me to them. I speak his language. So even how I will come and approach that with him is we will broach the subject in a way that he won't feel attacked. He won't feel like you're putting them down, you know. But personally, from a perspective of someone who's not an addict, I mean, to tell me, it's where those questions come. Can't you drink like a man? Other men are drinking this way. How is yacha? You see. Those questions come in because they don't have the understanding. But I, as an addict, I have been through the ringer, so I can come and tell you, I can approach that subject in a way that you'll understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Chris,
Yeah.
your mother prayed for you, spoke to your siblings. Did she exercise tough love? And what did that look like? Or how do we do it without conflict? Is conflict, some of us are very conflict averse. But in our conflict aversion, are we enabling?
Okay, thank you for that. Back to the question by, is it Nahashon?
Yes.
What Solo has, just adding on what he has said. Sometimes we treat addiction as if it's, you know, as families or as caregivers, we treat it as if it's something that should never be talked about. I always ask families, if your son has a physical injury, maybe he has an accident and he stays in the house and he says, I won't go to hospital, I won't, and the leg starts rotting, it's the third week, the fourth week, he's not going to hospital. Would you all guys sit back and say, you know, we don't want to confront him, we don't want to make the situation worse? What would you do as a family? You would all go pick him, take him to Nairobi Hospital without any conversation, okay? So, one of the things that families need to do, whenever you have somebody in addiction, and maybe this has been going on for years, I know we are not even talking about months, it has been going on for years. One of the things you need to do, educate yourself about this addiction. Educate yourself about, learn as much as possible. There is so much information out there that you can learn. There's TikTok, there's YouTube. Learn, try to understand this addiction. And as Solo is saying, call in the professionals. Call Daniel, call Albert. Get a family intervention, not even with the person who is in addiction. Have a family intervention where you as the family is taught how to handle or what addiction is, for you to understand everything about the science of addiction, for you to understand why your loved one is doing the same things over and over and over again. Then after that, then you can make the decision. You'll decide whether this guy needs to go to rehab. You'll decide whether he needs outpatient counseling. The professional, you'll work with the professional to make that decision. And sometimes, as Albert has said, it has to be confrontational. You even have, even as a family, you have the legal backing. If your loved one, if your sibling, if your son or daughter is now a danger to themselves or a danger to you, you can't wait another day. And I'll tell you something that again has been said here. those people who come to the rehab, because I also manage a rehab like Daniel, those people who come to rehab involuntarily fare better than those who come voluntarily.
Wonderful.
Those who come voluntarily end up with a lot of entitlement. Yeah, I brought myself here, so I need this, I need this, I need to see my mom, I need my phone, I need my laptop. But those who come involuntarily, like Albert has said, it's as if he has been there. They come, they see other guys, they are like, so you are also brought from the cell? Yes, I just found myself here. I was in a bar drinking, I found myself here. And you guys seem, you're not complaining. Yeah, we realized, this guy comes to his realization, and it takes about a week or 2 weeks. This guy who comes in voluntarily will even be telling the others, I can choose to terminate any time. And we struggle with them, both as a management and as counselors. So, if your son, your daughter, your loved one is dying at home and they are struggling and, they have been in accidents, they have been in hospital, what else are you waiting for? Already you have been told by the professional here that they are not, their brains have already been affected. Their decision making, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that deals with the reasoning and judgment, has already been messed up. They are not making the right decisions. So as a family, it gets to a point where you either wait for them to die, for them to get in an accident, and then you write very good obituaries and these things, eulogies, and we wish we knew. You knew. It's not that you didn't do it. You knew. You saw him. You even gave him the car that he had an accident in, and you knew that normally when he drinks, he could get into accident. Okay? So back to my mom. My mom and dad gave us tough love. They talked to us initially, as it progressed, they gave us all the help. They didn't have resources for rehab. They didn't even understand what, they're in the village. They didn't understand what counseling is. And in a large family, there are many other priorities. So they got to a point where you either worked for you to get food, and it got to a point where you were not even allowed because some of us had become thieves. So we didn't even have access to the gate. We didn't even have access to the home. We were pushed away. But they used to tell us, if you need help, you come. But if you're coming to steal, we are not allowing you in. And eventually, when we started, for me, for instance, we were 4 brothers. For me, when I started the recovery journey, after 3 weeks, now 4 weeks, that's when I started reaching out. Hey, guys, I think this time I have done 4 weeks, 3 weeks. Maybe you can now help. And everyone, all of them, they came through for me. It was tough love. If it weren't for that tough love, I would still be on the streets. I would still be in the bars blaming my mom and my dad over this and that. But they said, you know what? You're a grown-up now. You have your degree. You have had a job at Safaricom. You messed it up. We brought you in, cooked for you, gave you the resources to get another job at TSC. You messed it up after 2 years. Now, you know what? We also need to retire peacefully. So, wewe ukitaka usaidizi, you will come back later. Thank you.
That is tough love. Thank you for sharing that. And I think some of the examples you've given are what Albert was talking about, and I loved this. Raise the bottom. Don't wait for the bottom to get really deep. But as families, there are opportunities and there are ways that we can raise the bottom. And I like that, what you've said. The ones who fare best are the ones who go involuntarily. Gitare will take a couple of more questions, and as he does that, I will read one of the questions here. What posture should people in church have to welcome the addict without pushing them away? And I think, Esther, I will direct that question to you, and maybe also to Albert. Any other questions from the congregation? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is McKenna, and I have a question about the link between mental health and addiction. How does the link between mental illness and addiction and using as a coping mechanism influence the process and challenges of overcoming the addiction itself? And this is to the whole panel. Yeah.
Any other question in the congregation? Yes? Then there's one in the back, and then we'll answer the 3.
Hi, my name is Rael. Thank you so much to the church and to all the panel speakers. This is really great. My first question, I have two. My first one I'll address to Esther. In her presentation, you had something about sponsorship. That could mean very many things to very many people. So maybe you can just explain what sponsorship in AA is and what to expect. And then my second question is to Chris. After hearing the testimony that you shared on Mother's Day, I'm curious to know, what does the family look like now? What do these relationships look like now?
Okay, thank you for your questions, Rael, and thank you for inviting your friend in the back. And as we are waiting for that question, please remember this training session has been recorded on our Karura community website. And so please sambaza it to other people. We were focusing very much on CLG leaders, church workers today, but next week on Saturday, we are opening it up to anyone and everyone who you can get in the door. Albert will be here again next week, and so will Esther. So please send the link out, invite as many people as possible. As we've learned today, and I've learned a lot, information is key, so that we're able to address the problems that we're facing and the struggles our members are facing. Go ahead.
Hello, how are you? My name is Ruth. I would like to know how we can help people access AA, because this is becoming, the addiction is too much. And then number two is about the gaming as an addiction. Because I've come to realize that several times people are inviting me to join gaming, in the name of making money. And I'm thinking this is a Christian who is showing me how to make money, only to realize that I am being called to become an addict of, gambling. Rather, gambling, the word is gambling, and I think it is going to become the key thing.
Is that one last question in the back? No? Okay. I think you can proceed to answer the questions, and then we'll kind of bring it to a close because we're just about time.
Thank you. So on the question about what church can do, I think my first experience with church in the height of my drinking, my friend was actually an assistant to a senior pastor in a church near me. And like he said, at some point you are clear-headed. So those were those moments I was clear-headed and said, why don't I just go and see her and see if I can get help? But when I went to see her, I did not get help. She judged me. In fact, she wanted me to talk quickly and get out because I wasn't looking quite, I was hanging and all those things. So it put a bad taste in my mouth because I said at that point, no matter how I'm struggling, I am not going to church to ask for help. So I think the church needs to understand. I'm glad, I'm so happy that Karura is doing this, because you also can't blame people when they don't understand what addiction is. So I'm sure creating awareness like things that we're doing now will help the church, help those in need. And I think also the other thing is there's the stigma, the judgment. I remember my first years coming to this church, because I was an alcoholic, you can tell who's an alcoholic, the eyes, the what, everything. So I'm entering church and I could see people, those who need help, they sit at the back, they can't come in front here. And I wish there was a way that I could just go and say, you're in the right place, it's okay, come and get some help. But I think creating awareness that there's a solution, like Karura is doing, we now know there's an AA meeting here, and such events and such sessions to continue on, not only once a year, but so that people can know that there is a solution. And that's a good place to start, because most people don't actually understand what alcoholism or addiction is. The question... Sponsor. It is not the normal... No, I can't say normal. It's not the sponsor. It's not the sponsor we know. So when you start working the program in AA, you need someone who has been on this journey, in most cases longer than you, or who has worked all those 12 steps, to be able to walk with you to work those 12 steps. Because again, there's also the tendency, somebody is new, they're coming to AA, you're telling them so many things about AA, they're so confused, how does it work, what do I do? But once you identify the sponsor, because they've been there and they know how it works, they're able to work with you to work the program. And maybe the other question would be, how would someone identify who can be their sponsor? The more meetings they go to, they are able to listen to people sharing. And so I may be sharing and my story seems similar to somebody else's story, and they feel, oh, let me ask her to be my sponsor because I think I can relate. She's a mother, she's been on this journey, or whatever the reason may be. So the more meetings they go to, they're able to identify that person. And the only way I can add that the program will work is if you work the program. You can't just be coming and saying, I started going to meetings in Karura, 1 year later, you have no sponsor, no nothing. It's not going to help you. You have to work the program, continue going to meetings, and like even Maggie said, at that point also do service, help others.
I like that.
Yeah.
Go to the program, but work the program. Albert, the link between mental health and addiction.
Okay, I'll answer that, but I just want to say something about the church as well, because this was my experience. And I've thought about it. I know the answer is love. It's easy to say that. But I'm just thinking that I've noticed that different churches have a sensitivity or a heart for different kinds of problems. I've observed that. And I think that is often because of the exposure that the members themselves or the leadership has had. And so you find that some churches that have a heart for prisoners, or for people living with disabilities, or for the elderly, or children in trouble, and so forth. So what really touched me as I prepared for this and I engaged with the Karura videos was Engineer Kingangi's story about going to a rehab as ministry and discovering he was an alcoholic. I mean, that was just, it really touched me. And so I think the short answer is it takes a grace of God to have a heart for people who are suffering and for people who are not so attractive at that point, and to imagine what they might be or what they might look like if they, with a bit of love, if they get a good bath, a good meal, and so forth. So it takes a grace of God. It's not easy. First thing. Then on the issue of mental health and addictions, there's a very high correlation between people with mental health disorders and people with substance use disorders. After all, substance use disorder is a mental health problem in itself. But so because of that very high correlation, the first thing a psychiatrist needs to establish is whether the mental health disorder was induced by the substance use. And if you remove the substance use, say put somebody into a rehab or something like that, and the mental health disorder symptoms are still present, it means that mental health disorder was pre-existing or was existing separately. If you remove the substance and the mental health disorder symptoms go, then you know they were induced by the substance use. But sometimes it's the other way around. Somebody discovers or they begin to experience discomfort, distress because of some mental health issue, and then they discover that one substance or another takes the edge off, helps them to cope and so forth, so they start to use a substance. That is, if the mental health then issue is dealt with in a good way, then you find that the desire for the substance dissipates or disappears. But by that time, the substance use may have become a problem in itself. And so in order to have a good result, a treatment plan needs to embrace all of these issues together. And at the point where the person is clearly distressed from both of them, sometimes it doesn't really matter which came first. They both need to be dealt with, and they both have a distinct character in terms of the process of recovery. Other times they exist separate from each other. But for sure, mental health disorders, and even things that perhaps may not be mental health disorders per se, but are highly distressing like trauma, or even a troubled marriage, psychosocial situations, do predispose people to turn into substances to cope. And on the other side, when it comes to recovery, if you stop using your the substance, whatever it was, and there's still a mental health issue, the chances of you staying sober, if the mental health issue is not properly managed, are much reduced. So, and this is a problem even for rehabs, because not all rehabs are equipped to deal with mental health issues. And equipped, I mean they don't have the personnel. So you need to ask, what are your qualifications? What is your experience when you're looking or shopping around for rehabs? What capacities are you able to deal with? The recovery rates for people with mental health issues who also have a substance use disorder are far less, they relapse far more than people with a simple substance use disorder without any mental health issue. Those are particularly difficult patients to deal with. The recovery journey, the initial primary recovery may take a lot longer. It'll be characterized by many more relapses, but we say relapse is not a failure. Relapse is just part of your journey towards recovery. It just brings you closer to the recovery. It just means that there's something you need to learn. So I really feel for those, and it's an increasing issue when you have both of them together.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, just to add on the same, when we are talking about the mental health conditions, there is a high correlation, like Albert is saying. Most of them, like bipolar 1, bipolar 2, major depressive disorder, what we call depression, ADHD, most of those in the mood spectrum, schizophrenia, all those, they increase the chance of substance use disorder. So sometimes we say it's like the case of the chicken and the egg. You don't even know, you might not even know which one came first. So when we are doing the treatment in the rehabs or any treatment for substance use disorder, it has to start with a psychiatric assessment. If you are trying to help your loved one, and maybe you have taken them to rehab, and there is no psychiatric assessment that is being done, then something is off. And like Albert is saying, that program will most likely fail. There is a high chance of relapse because there could even be issues like anxiety that have not been detected. So you will deal with the substance use. Of course, he is in rehab, she's in rehab for 90 days, so they are not using the substance. But because of the underlying mental health issue that was not treated, once they are done with rehab, the issues will persist. The anxiety, the guilt, the shame, and all those symptoms of mental health issues will continue. And what will they do? They will look for a substance like alcohol, which is a depressant. They will look for such a substance to calm themselves down, and hence a relapse. So you'll find your loved one going back and forth, relapsing, and you can see they really want to stop this substance, to stop using maybe alcohol, to stop smoking weed. But what you have been doing, you have been offering the help, but only for one part of it. There's a comorbidity meaning there are two or even more conditions. You're only treating the substance use disorder. So for whoever asked that question, maybe it would be preferable if you can talk to us even after this, so that we can go maybe in depth. If you have maybe a specific case, you can talk to any of the professionals here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we're bringing our training today to a close, just want to touch on some of the things that have been mentioned today. That in Maggie's story, being able to be heard, finding a place you can talk about your trauma. As CLGs and home care groups, that's one of the things we really need to focus on. When a member or the child of a member says, I need to talk to somebody about what I'm feeling or what I've experienced, that's one of the things we can begin to be more sensitive and open to. Thank you, Esther, for sharing your story. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Solo. Thank you, Dan. We want to hear more of you, Dan, next week, if you're able to come. And thank you very much, Chris. I also would like to point you to our church website. There are some more videos of testimonials that we will be sharing. A gentleman called Sunday, who was not able to be with us today, but who was touched at Jogs by our church group, and who is 4 or 5 years later coming to share where he is now. Now, Chris, you didn't say where your family is now.
Oh,
what are your relationships like?
The relationships, I had to say that. They are good. They are good. For the 8 years, I have built the bridges with my parents. I had to go back. My wife, my ex-wife, she had left. So we made peace. We co-parent. And with my siblings, all my siblings, I made amends. So I'm in a good place. And this would never have happened if I had continued drinking. Recovery, remember, it's not just stopping using the substance. It's also the emotional work that is involved. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one question we didn't quite answer. So, Esther?
Oh, it's a question of where to find AA. Of course, as of now, all the details of where the meetings are on our website. But I'll ask Maggie to add. I know what we're trying to do is the same thing that we call public information, trying to do PAs in towns outside of Nairobi so that AA can start in those places. I must say that if I compare that first time I got sober, I think I only found 10 meetings. And now today we have so many meetings in many towns, and what has also helped is the online, that you can actually just attend an AA meeting 7 in the morning, 1 p.m., 9 p.m., during the weekend. There are lots of meetings that you can get on the website. I'll ask Maggie to add.
Okay, to add on to what Esther said, so all our meetings are on our website. We have a hotmail, we have a number where even if someone is in an area where they can't access the internet, there's a number for the AA Kenya where you can get someone to talk to or someone to guide you where to go. Also, to add on to the public information, we've really been trying to reach out to alcoholics who still suffer, because again, we need to do service and to just reach out to some of our people out there. So yeah, and we have a saying that when you're ready, the hand of AA will always be there.
Thank you so much.
Just to add, if you need anything about AA, any location and anything, just talk to this guy, Daniel.
Daniel. and I guess
anything AA in Kenya, this guy.
And Esther, and I think all of you here. And I guess one of the things I would suggest, if you're dealing with somebody who has tough love, say, I will buy you the credit for you to attend that online meeting, and just enough for that online meeting. Those are some of the things that I think we can be able to do. I would like to thank all of you for being here, and I'll ask Gitare to come back and close for us. Thank you so much. And God bless you.
Thank you. Just a hand for these amazing panelists. Thank you guys so much. So this takes us to the close of our first training day. Like we said, next week we'll be having this same training day open to everybody. So if you know somebody who is struggling with substance abuse or addiction, somebody who's struggling with addiction, please bring them here. Let's all get educated. Let's learn how to better serve those among us who are in the most need, and just grow our capacity to love them in action even better. Thank you guys for coming. If you'd like to continue supporting this ministry, please do send to our pay bill, which is 523-900 at with the account number Mental Health, or account name Mental Health. Everything that you send to here will help us actually start our own counseling center where we'll be able to triage people, whether that's for mental health, whether it's for addiction, or just the regular problems of life that people go through. Yes, we have so many professionals here on site, so if you need to see them, we will be sharing a list of all the resources that we've put together. But if you know any other professionals, any other resources that maybe weren't here that you think should be here, please do stop by the info desk and let us know, send us an email, or give us a call, and we'll be very happy to take those on. Yeah, and we invite you to join us this coming Sunday, where Albert will be giving us the message, as well as next Sunday and Saturday, where we have the training as well as another message. So thank you everyone so much, and I think we can close with the grace. So if we could all just stand. Let us pray. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen and amen.
That was nice. That was nice. Thank you. And you know, we will have a recovery office. We've told you that. When the container comes, we'll have an office where AA can